Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with lesson number 19 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're going to learn Python or you're going to die trying. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice strong cup of black coffee. That is straight up black coffee. No sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. Why? Because you guys watching this channel, you're jet fighter aircraft. And if you're a jet fighter aircraft, this is your jet fuel. Go get you some. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to learn today. I'm going to need you to go ahead and fire up your most excellent Visual Studio Code. And while you're firing that up, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your encouragement and your support that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, look down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping on over there and hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and let's talk about what we are going to learn today. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the homework solution to the homework that I assigned you in lesson number 18. And so what I need to know right off the bat, this is our time to be honest with each other. Were any of you able to do the homework on your own? If you were, leave a comment down below. I am legend. If you were not, leave a comment that you folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. Okay, you fold it up like a cheap lawn chair. All right, it's actually okay if you were not able to do it. What I hope though is I hope you spend at least an hour trying to figure it out, because as you just hit these impasses and can't figure it out, and you're thinking and you're trying and you're thinking and trying, you're actually learning, and then when I show you, you will really absorb it. But if you're one of those people that just sit and watch me code, looks real easy when I'm doing it, you think you understand it as you're watching me, but you can't do anything on your own. So it's really important for you guys to be really trying your best to do these homework assignments. But I digress. Let's go ahead over and I will bring up Visual Studio Code. I will also scoot out of your way. And I do believe what the homework assignment was to have a class that would keep track of students. So we would sort of have a class of like student ID. I'm going to have a little sip. And then what we needed to be able to do was for that student have a first name and have a last name. Okay, and so you would create this object, a student, and then it would have a first name and it would have a last name. And then you need some ability to go out and input the grades for that student using your class. And then so there would be like a method to input grades. There would be a method to print the grades. There would be a method to average the grades for that student. There would be a method to find the high grade for that student. And there would be a method to find the low grade for that student. So I hope you guys were able to do it, but let's just jump in over here. And the first thing that we are going to need to do is over in our most excellent Python files, we are going to create a new program. And I am going to call it studentclass.py. The .py is kind of important. And boom, we've got ourselves a fresh new Python program just waiting to be written. So I'm going to start by creating my class. And my class is going to be students. Okay, my class is going to be students just like that. Okay, now how do we always have to start? We have to start by defining our init function, and then we are going to pass it two parameters, because I think when you create the object, when you create the student object, when you create the student, you're just going to need to know first of all, always you're going to need to know self, and then you're going to need to know last, or let's just put first and then last. So that is what you are going to need. And then what do we need to do? Well, we need to set self.first. Self.first is equal to first, and then we need to set self.last is equal to last. And then that should be pretty good. All right, so let's just play around with this a little bit. And so let's see if we can create a student. Let's say that I have, let's say that I just have student1, and that is going to be equal to students. And then what are we going to pass it? We are going to pass it, I need to make that a string, Joe Evans, okay, like that. And then let's just see if we could print students one dot first, and then students one dot last. Does that make sense? So we're just creating a student one, and then we're going to print student one comma, I guess I should probably, I think that will work. I think that'll work. Let's just try that and see what happens. Let's come up and run it. And we are denied. Students one is not. Oh, plural. Should be student. Singular. Okay. Did you guys see that? That scared me. I'm just firing up my first video today, and I thought, man, have I forgotten how to do classes? And so let's run this. And okay, can you guys see that? I shouldn't have covered up. I will move this out of your way, and then I'm going to do a Control plus so that you can see down here better. And now we're going to run this thing, and it has Joe Evans. Okay, so then I could come down here and I could create a new student. I like to just create the students and then work with them separately. So student 2 is equal to students, and then let's say that we have Shirley and then Baker. Okay, and then we'll come down here and we will print that. I just like to show you that once you create student one, it stays there. You can go out and do all types of other stuff, but student one is now an object and you can go back to it. It's keeping track of the data and the functions associated with that student. And so I could come here now and I could Control V and I could say print student 2 and student 2 last. Again, we don't have to put these because we're not calling a method. We're just getting a variable from the init. And since we're getting a variable from the init, we just call it student1.first, which was self.first up here. All right, let's give it a roll. Okay, Joe.Evans, Shirley.Baker. Boom. How do you like that? How do you like that? Okay, that is just a good thing. I like to just kind of get rolling here. You know, this is my first program of the day, and yeah, we know how to do classes. All right, so now probably one of the more interesting things that we are going to have to do is we're going to have to input grades for these people. All right, so I am going to need to create a new class. And so I'm going to define, and I'm going to call it G input for grade input, and then that is going to need self as always. And remember, I'm going to inherit the name and so forth from this. But then what am I going to need to know? I'm going to need to know number of grades. All right, now notice that I don't put number of grades here when I create the student, and so I'm not passing it that. So this guy, when I call G input, I don't have to pass it self, but from the main program, when I call G input, I need to pass it a number of grades. All right. Now, I guess we should probably just keep track of that. So I could say self.ng is equal to ng. So that, you know, I could then, if I wanted to call, student one dot number of grades.ng and get that back. And so that might be a good thing to have. And that Mr. Colon does not belong there. Okay, that Mr. Colon does not belong there. All right, boys and girls, men and women, here we go. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get those grades. And so I need to get grades, okay, and that is going to be equal to, like that. I bet that I could just go ahead and make that self.grades like that. Okay, and then I'm creating an empty array to hold the grades in, and then I'm going to go for I in range, And where do I want to start? I want to start at 0. Okay. And then in this case, as I'm inputting the grades, I can just use ng because it knows in this case what ng is. I guess you could do self.ng if you wanted to because they're the same, but let's just go ng and then increment by 1, and it really bothers me when that thing pops up. Okay, for I in range from 0 to ng, and so remember we're starting at 0, so we need to stop 1 before ng, but when you do range, it actually does stop 1 before ng, so we should be good to go. And then who did we forget? We forget our old friend Mr. Colon. Don't forget your old friend Mr. Colon. Now we need to say, we need to input, or we need to say just GRD, so we'll read it like that. Do I want to get fancy? No, I don't want to get fancy. So we're going to say GRD is going to be equal to, what are we going to do? We are going to input. And I'm going to get out of your way. I really help making myself tiny like that. It's like I'm just fading out of your, it's like I don't even exist anymore when I get that small. But anyway, we're going to say input, and it's going to be a float. So we're going to float the input, and that darn thing is still, let me go one smaller. Can you guys still see that? I think you can still see that. Sometimes it doesn't get in the way when I do that. Okay, so I am going to float the input, and then I'm going to say, please enter the grade, colon, and then this closes the string, this closes the input, and that closes the float. And now I need to put GRD in self.grades, and so I can say self.grades, and then what do I want to do? I want to dot append, and then what do I want to append? GRD. Okay, so self.grades would be like student1.grades, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to append to that number I just got in, which is GRD. All right, so now what I need to do is I'm trying to think, do I really need to return self.grades? I don't think I need to return, yeah, I am, just because I don't have to use it if I don't want to, but I'm going to return self.grades, so then I could sort of read it into something and then print it out if I wanted to. Okay, so I'm going to return self.grades like that. Okay, that might be kind of interesting. And so let's come down here. So we create the students, we print their names out. Now let's just see if I can do an input. So I'm going to say students, and I better put it into something. And so I could say grade, I could just say latest student. Yeah, I just got to put, I'm just trying to see if I can get the data back out. So I'm going to say latest student is equal to student. That is not, I'm just going to say test grade. And that just means I'm testing the function here. We'll use this later, but I just want to test it to see if it works. So what am I going to call? I'm going to call student1. That's the object we created, dot. And then what did I call that up there? We called itginput, and then let's just tell it that we want it to input 4 grades. And then after that, let's just say print test grades, like that. Okay, so do you see what I'm trying to do? I'm just trying to see if I can use this method, to get the grades associated with this student, and I'm just going to ask for 4 grades. So let's see if this thing's going to work. Kind of makes me happy that it didn't crash. I'm going to make this bigger for you to watch, and then I'm going to make myself bigger because I hate being a postage stamp. Okay, so please enter the grade. So I'm going to say 9. I'm going to click down here and I'm going to say 90, and then 95, and then I'm going to say 96, and then I'm going to say 97, and boom. Okay, now I have those grades, and those grades are associated with that student. Also, let's see here. if I actually did, okay, now that I have done that, I think that I could get it out just with self.grades. Yes, I could. Yeah, so let me see, once you have run it, I think that I could just also say print. I think I could print. This is bugging me. Okay, I think that I could print simply, because you can't do this unless you have called G input. Okay, but once you have called G input, it has input the grades, and then it should know what student1.grades are. So I think I could just print student1.grades like that. Let's try that. Okay, so please enter the grades. We are going to go 90, 91, 92, 93, and oh, okay, that's 4 grades. Yeah, started with 0. Boom. Okay, so what you can see is once you have called G input, you can access the student grades as a variable. Now, what's the difference between student1.grades? I am getting that variable self.grades that I set up here. All right, and I can just bring that out, or I can get it with a return. So you see the two different ways that I got that grade back. One is I put it in test grades when I called the method. Okay, the other way I could do it is, let's just see this. You see, I could even just forget test grades. All right, and then I could take this out. And so when I say student1.g input, it's going to input the grades, and then because it called it, it's going to know what student1.grades are. So I'm just showing you kind of two different ways of doing the same thing. And so it comes down here, and I'm going to go 90. Click down here, and I'm going to go 90. And then I'm going to go 91, I'm going to go 92, and I'm going to go 93, and boom! You see, I went out and I got those grades back just by doing student1.grades, and that's probably a little easier to do it. But you see how it didn't hurt anything to return it, just in case you wanted to like read it back after you had done that. And so that is really, really good. Okay, so now let's come down and let's say define P grades, or let's say, let's go print grades like that. And then for that, if we're going to print the grades, do we need to send it anything? Well, no, because for that student, it already knows how many grades there were because we had to input them, and I set self.ng to ng, so it's going to keep track that if Teresa had 6 grades and if Tom had 4 grades, it's going to keep track of that because I set that self.ng. If I just left it as ng, it would have forgotten it, you know, because whoever the new student was, it would reset that. But here, it should know the number of grades, and so I really don't need to pass it anything. Okay, I really don't need to pass it anything. So then I can come here and I can say for I in range, and then I'm going to go from 0 to what? Self.ng. All right, and the self is going to come when I call this method, and then I'm going to go in 1 steps, and then what am I going to do is I'm going to print, and here, let's see if we can get fancy here. Let's say print, and then what I am going to print, I am going to say I'm going to print self.first, comma, self.last, comma, and then I'm going to put the double, right? And then I'm going to say, so this would be like Tom Evans's grades are like that. Okay. Tom Evans's grades are. Why did I use the double quote? Because that'll let me use a single quote as an apostrophe here. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to print self.grades of I. Okay. So that should just print out the grades. And then just to keep the formatting good, I'm going to drop out of the for loop and I'm just going to print a blank line like that. And why do I do that? So that way the next thing I print, there'll be a little spacing in there. So let's see what's going to happen. So that should print the grades. And so here what I am going to do is I am going to print. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so we're just going to go student 1, student 2. We're going to come here and we've input the grades. Okay, so now what we want to do is student 1 dot, what do we call that thing? Print grades. Print grades. And then we're calling a method, so we need to put these, but we don't have to pass it anything because it should already know everything that it wants. Okay, so let's come down here. Let's get bigger. Okay, I think you can see that. And then I am going to run this thing. All right, please enter the grade. Please enter the grade. And so this would be, we're going to be 90, we're going to be 90, 91, 92, 93, and then student 1 is not defined. Oh my goodness, did you guys catch that? Student 1. All right, so that was an error. Okay, so let's try this again. Please enter the grade. We'll click down here. The grade is 90, 91, 92, and then 93. And we are denied. It says student 1. Print grades take 0 positional arguments, but it was given 1. Student 1 dot print grades. Define. Oh, what did I do here? What did I do here? Who did I forget here? Mr. Self. Okay, always got to pass it the self, and the self comes from the call. You don't have to put anything in here. The self comes from this. Okay, so you don't have to put self in here. When you call it, it gets the self from there. All right, I think this is going to run this time. That really scared me. Okay, so this is going to be 90, 91, 92, 93. And then boom, there it is. Student 1 input works, student 1 print grades works. All right, so now I'm going to take a swig of this Go Juice, man. We're on a roll here. Okay, so now what do we want to do? Let's say student 1 dot I'm going to define the function first. So I'm going to define the method first. So this was the print method. This was the print method. And so now I am going to define, and then I'm going to define av grades. All right. And then let's not forget who? Our friend Mr. Self, and then our friend Mr. Colon. All right. Now the good news is that, remember, like on the printing, I'd set self.ng to ng, so it should be remembering how many grades are associated with each student, and so we need to average those grades. So we just need to set a bucket is equal to 0. That's where we're going to add the grades into to average them. And guys, I don't need to do self.bucket because I don't need to keep track of what the total is. I just need to have a bucket. And then I'm going to say for I in range, and then we're going to go from 0 to, I got to do ng.self. Why? Because self.ng. Why do I have to do that? Because I want the number of grades associated with that student, because Teresa and Tom might not have the same number of grades. So I'm going to have self.ng, and then I'm going to increment by 1. Our friend, who's your friend? Mr. Colon. And then what we are going to do here is we are going to say GRD is equal to, we're going to float it because a grade could be a 91.5, so we need a floating point number. We're going to input, and then we are, what am I doing? I'm doing input. That made no sense. Excuse me. That made no sense at all, did it? It was that sneeze was coming on and it distracted me. So what we need to do is we need to say bucket is equal to bucket plus, right? How do we average grades? We add all the grades up and then we divide by the number of grades. And so I've got to go one at a time, and I've got to step through that list of grades, and each time through take the bucket and add the new grade to it. So bucket is equal to bucket plus self.grades of I. All right. And do you guys now see how this self is so that when student 1 is called, it's getting student 1 dot grades. When student 2 is called, it gets student 2 dot grades. All right. So this self thing is really an amazing thing. Okay. So now that is the bucket. And then what I am going to say is AVG is equal to, after I've gone all the way through and added all the numbers up, now I'm outside the for loop, I'm going to say it's equal to bucket divided by ng, right? Wrong, not ng. I need what? Self.ng, and it should know what that is. And then, you know, what I could do is I could kind of do two things. I could say self.avg is equal to AVG. So then I could just go in and I could say something like, you know, student1.avg, and then I would get their average back. And I could do that. Or what I could also do with that is I could return AVG, and then I could just say something like AVG is equal to student1.avg, and then put the quotes on it. And I think really that is a better way to do it. Yeah, I'm not even going to mess with this. I just like to call it and have it returned. But I think I showed you how you can do it either way. Okay, so now what have we done? We've come in, we've created 2 students, and then we input the grades for student 1, and then we print the grades for student 1. And then what we could do is we could just say AVG is equal to student 1 dot av grades, student 1 dot av grades, and then remember we're calling a method, so we've got to put that on it. And then what we could do here is we could print. Okay, I'm trying to think here. So this printed the grades, and so let me take this out. And so this is going to print the grades for me. And then I am going to say print, and then I am going to say first, and then I'm going to say comma, and then has an average of, and then comma AVG. So right, I'm reading AVG when I calculate the average grades, and then I'm going to print out that student's grades. Does that make sense? I hope so. All right, let's try that. Okay, please enter grade. Okay, we are going to input a 90, a 91, a 92, and a 93. That looks good. And then boom, we got a, okay, first, that should be student 1 dot first, right? Were you guys yelling at me? Hopefully that's what it was. Let's see. Okay, we're going to input 90. 91, 92, and 93, and boom, it says, look at this, please enter the grade 93. Then Joe Evans's grades are 90, 91, 92, 93, and then it says Joe has an average of 91.5. Boom! Do you see that? Look at that. We are Python class writing machines, and you know why? It's the Go Juice. It's the jet fuel. Okay, guys, let's keep going here. Now, the one thing is I'm just kind of real picky about formatting, and do you see how that put that space after Joe Evans? And so what I want to do is student.first is a what? Student.first is a string, and so I can just concatenate to that string, this string, and then it should work. And so let's just give that a try real quick. And so we say enter 4 grades, and we're going to go 90, 91, 92, 93. What happened? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's run it again. I don't need to enter the number of grades. So, all right, let's go here. So please enter the grade 90, 91, 92, 93, and boom, Joe has an average of, oh, it was up here where the problem was. Well, I can fix that. You see it says Joe has. I can fix that by just putting a space there. And then it's up here somewhere in the concatenate where I need to, it was up in this print, self.first, self.last. And then here, what I can do is I can concatenate it with this string. So self.last is a string concatenated with this string, and now that should get rid of that space, okay? So let's try this down here. We're gonna go, let's come down here, and we are gonna go 90, 91, 92, and 93, and boom. Do you see how now Joe Evans's grades are, and then Joe has an average of 91.5. Boom. All right, guys, we are really doing great here. We have got a lot of this done, don't we? We have a lot of this done. All right, so we have input, we have print grades, we have average grades, and now what we want to do is we want to find the high-low grade, okay? So I'm going to define, and I'm going to call it high-low, and then we got to pass it self, so it knows who it is, all right? And our friend Mr. Colon, and then we're going to come down here, and now we need to step through. So we need to set up a high grade and low grade just to get the ball rolling. So the high grade needs to be a very low grade so that you actually will find the high grade. So the high grade needs to be initialized to 0. The low grade needs to be initialized to a high grade, which would be 100, so that way you actually find the low grade. And now what we are going to do is we're going to, for I in range, we want to step through what? From 0 to self.ng, that's the number of grades. Self.ng steps in 1. We end this with who? Our friend Mr. Colon. And then we come down here, and then what we are going to do is we are going to say if self.grades of I, if self.grades of I is greater than high grade, okay, if the present grade, if the present self.grade is greater than the high grade, then what do we have? We have a new winner. So high grade becomes self.grades of I. All right. Now, and that's all that we would have to do. Now, what do we also have to do? If self.grades of I is less than low grade, then what do we have? We have a new loser. So low grade is equal to self.grades of I. And I have a horrible mistake. And this is, I don't know why we get this mistake so much. This should not be 1. This should be I, like that. Okay. And now, what do we want to return? All right, so now at this point, we know what the low grade is. We know what the high grade is. I don't think we need to save that. We're just going to pass it back, because if you wanted it again, you could come and just get it again. So I'm not going to set self.highgrade and self.lowgrade to high grade and low grade. I'm just going to return them. So I'm going to return low grade, comma, high grade, like that. All right. So now let's come down here and let's add that. So now what I am going to do is I am going to come here and I'm returning two values. So what do I need to do? I need to have two variables down here. Low G, comma, high G is equal to student1 dot, student1 dot, and I always like, look at that. Guessed it, student1 dot high low. That's what I called it. All right. Do I need to pass in any parameters? No, because it's going to get the self from student1 here. Okay. And then I could say print student1 dot first, student1 dot first, and then I'll just do a plus concatenate, and then had a high grade of, and then comma, and then it would be high G, like that. All right. And then let's take that, copy, and paste, and student1 first had a low grade of low G. All right, so let's try this. Hey, good news is it didn't crash, and so please enter the first grade. We're going to say 90, we're going to say 91, 92, and 93, and high grade is not defined. What is that nonsense? Oh, I misspelled it. High. You see that? Did you guys catch that? And look, he even tried to warn me, hey, here's something I haven't seen before. I should have caught that. Like that. Why did that not go away, that underline? Okay, so let's see. It shouldn't underline it this time, I think. Yeah. All right. You see, when it underlines it, it's kind of warning you that it hasn't seen it before. All right, so now let's try this. We're going to run this program. Okay, so student1 is not defined. What? Student1 is not defined. What do you mean student1 is not defined? Line 35. Oh, look at this. Somehow I unindented that and all that nonsense. You know, when I tried to fix high grade, I ended up unindenting that, and it was putting that as part of the class, which would be very bad. Okay, let's go here. Please enter the grade. Please enter the grade down here. 90, 91, 92, 93, and boom. Okay, look at that. All right, let's look at this. Okay. So please input the grade 90, 91, 92, 93. Joe Evans's grades are 90, 91, 92, 93. Joe has an average of 91.5. Joe had a high grade of 93. Joe had a low grade of 90. And so we need a space between Joe and had. And so is this down here. I'll put a space there and a space there. And then that should fix that. I don't need to run that again, so that looks really good. I like this a lot. I like it a lot. All right. So let's think what else here. The only thing I didn't like is it says, please input the grades, and it really doesn't, when it's input, it says, please enter the first grade, second grade, third grade. Well, you really don't know who it's talking about. So I wonder if we can get fancy up here, and where we are inputting the grades, you know, instead of saying, please input the grade, I'm going to say please please enter, and then I'm going to add that to, I'm going to put a space, I'm going to add that to self.first, because it should know that, it should have inherited that. So please enter plus self.first, and then I'm going to add to that, concatenate to it, and I'm going to use the double quotes, all right, and then apostrophe S, grade, and then space. All right, let's try this. Okay. Whoa, please enter Joe. Didn't get the first grade. Okay, do you see how it's trying to put the name there, but I messed up that input somehow. Okay, please enter, and then it ends it, and then plus self.first. Doesn't need that there. And that needs to come out here. So this closes the input, and then I still need to close the float. All right, so I need you to look at this. So please enter space, that is a string. I'm adding it to the string self.first, or I'm concatenating it. I'm tacking it onto the end, and then plus. Why did I use the double quote? Because I want the single quote to be the apostrophe. I think this is going to work. Oh, could not convert string to float. Okay, now that is interesting. Could not convert string to float, and that is in line 35 again. What is this UT4? GRD. It doesn't like what I did there. It doesn't like how I did that. So I'm trying to input, I'm trying to give it. So let's try, this is just a good thing to do, guys. This is a good thing to do. So let's just see if I can create the prompt. So I'm just going to say prompt, and that is going to be equal to this, which is please enter space. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to concatenate that with self.first, which it should know. And then I'm going to concatenate that with the string quotes apostrophe S grade. Okay, now I am closing that string. And then down here, this whole thing now is just going to be the variable, not the string, but just the variable prompt. And then I can look at this kind of simply, and I can see GRD is float of input of prompt. And then prompt is there. And, you know what I did that was terrible here? No, this is input, so this is just, this ng will work. Probably I'm just going to make that self.ng just to be a little bit more consistent. All right, so now let's try this. And prompt, misspelled prompt, P-R-O-M-P-T, prompt. All right, so let's try this. Okay, please enter Joe's grade. Okay, so it looks like it likes that, but I need a space here like that. All right. So let's see if this will work. Okay, so we come in here, and then it says, please enter Joe's grade. And so I'm going to say 90 91, 92, 93, and then boom, look at that. Joe has an average of 91.5. Joe had a high grade of 93. Joe had a low grade of 90. All right, so you see, I really like that. Now, guys, I don't know why it didn't work when I had it inside of here. I probably made an error in there somewhere. I probably had an error in the string, but anyway, we put it out here and it works. Okay, I am just curious. I know I shouldn't do these things live, but what if I just copy this? And then what if I just paste it there like that? Let's see if that will run. Okay, yeah, it works now. So I must have had an error in the way that I entered it earlier. And so it's going to go 90, 91, 92, 93. All right, and boom, it all works. And then we don't need this separate prompt nonsense. That was just a tool in helping me to debug it. All right, guys, I am having a lot of fun with this. All right, so now let's kind of go ahead and let's say that we do a couple of students. All right, so I am going to, what am I going to do down here? Student 1 is Joe Evans, and then what I am going to do is I am going to go ahead and when I create him, I'm going to input his grades because that would kind of make sense. And then when I create Shirley, I'm going to input her grades, but she's going to have done a lot more work. So she's going to have 6 grades. And then that is going to be student 2. That's going to be student 2. And then what we are going to do is we're just going to kind of do this all over here. All right, so then now I've got 2 students and I've got 2 reports. So what I want to, I've got 2 students and I've got the grades in for those 2 students. All right, so let me, sorry, get out of your way. Hopefully you guys could see what I did. Right, I'm just doing student, I'm creating the 2 students here and I'm inputting their grades. All right, so now let's work with student 1. So we're going to say student 1, let's just say print, and then we are going to say grade report for, and then it makes me scared to do this because of how much trouble I had earlier. Student 1 dot first and comma student 1 dot last. Okay, so I'm going to print grade report for student 1 dot first and student 1 dot last. Okay, and now I am going to print, and then I'm just going to print, because I've already kind of given the student's name, I'm going to just print grades. And so how do I get grades? That would be, that prints them up here. Yeah, so there I just have to call print grades dots. I just have to call the print grades, right? So I don't need to put a print statement down here to print the grades. I just have to say student 1 dot print grades, like that. Student 1 dot print grades, and then the printing will be done up here. Okay, then what I will want to do is I will want to print, and I will just say average is, like that. And then what should I do? Well, it's going to return the average, right? So it's ab grades, and it's going to return the average. So I should just be able to call ab grades here. So ab grades, like that. And then because it's calling the method, I need to put that in. So print average is ab grades, and then I got to tell it who. Student 1. And now I need to say, I need to call that high grade, so I will say low grade, comma, high grade is equal to, and that's student 1 dot low dot high low, I'm calling it, and now I'm going to print low grade is, and then comma, low grade, and then print high grade is, and then comma, high outside the string, comma, high grade. All right, does that make sense? Let's see how many mistakes I made in there. You guys are probably screaming at me for all the mistakes I've made already, so let's see. Okay, so please enter Joe's grade. It's 90, 91, 92, 93. Okay, and then please enter Shirley's grades. All right, that's pretty good. Let's make that bigger so you can see it. Please enter Shirley's grades, and she is a much better student than Tom, and so she is going to get a 97, 98, 99, and a 100, and then, oh yeah, and she had more grades, right? And so she's going to get another 99 and another 98. That scared me, but remember we created Shirley with more grades. All right. Oh, student 1. Oh, I misspelled student again. Man, it's like the T isn't working on my keyboard. The key isn't working on my keyboard. Okay, so where was that? Student 1 dot print grades, and I think when I do print grades I'm calling something, so I better do that. All right, so let's try this again, and let's make it bigger for you. All right, so we are going to go 90, 91, 92, and 93, and then Shirley's grade, and her grade is going to be a 96, 97, 98, 99, and a 100, and then another 99, and then boom. Okay, look at this, guys. Who's your huckleberry? Look at this, we got this thing working now. I'm your huckleberry, right? Okay, guys, boom, look at this. Okay, so we input those grades, and then after we input those grades, there is no way to make that move smoothly. Okay, maybe that will. Okay, so so here's grade report for Joe Evans. Joe Evans' grades are 90, 91, 92, 93. Okay, and then the average is 91.5, high, low grade is 90, high grade is 93. Okay, now what did we not do? We need to now go in and give the report on Shirley, because we did everything for Joe, but we didn't do it for Shirley. So we're going to come up here, and now we're going to take all this, and then we're going to paste it, and then this is going to be student 2, and then this is going to be student 2, and then this is going to be student 2, and then this is student 2, and then that should work. All right, so now let's make this great big here, and let's make that where you can see it good, and let's see. Okay, let's run this thing. All right, please enter Joe's grade. Okay, 90, 91, 92, 93. That looks good, right? And then please enter Shirley's grades. 80, she had a bad day. 86, 99, 100, 97, and then 99, and then 98. All right, And then boom, look at this. Okay, so grade report for Joe Evans. Joe Evans's grades are 90, 91, 92, 93. The average is 91.5. The low grade is 90. The high grade is 93. Grade report for Shirley Baker. Shirley Baker's grades are 86, 99, 100, 97, 99, 98. The average is 96.5. The low grade is 86, and the high grade is 100. Boom, we got it. Guys, this has been a little bit of a long lesson, but I kind of have taken you through these classes and methods now twice, and I'm hoping you understand them, because it's really, first of all, now when you look at other people's code, you will understand these things that were maybe so confusing before, that like, what is this init business? It's just it's the method that is called when you create the student, and it sets up those variables that you're passing in. Then you can set up all of these different methods. You just pass itself. You just got to pass itself, and then you can do all these separate things. And then you can call those methods once you created a student. Once you have created a student, students one, then you can call all of those methods, which is student one dot this method, student one dot that method. Okay, guys, I hope this made a lot of sense for you. I've really enjoyed this, and I kind of tell you where we're going. What your homework for today is that if you had not done this by yourself, if you had to watch me do it and then you kind of did it along with me, what your homework is your homework is to now start with a blank sheet, and don't look at my work and don't look at my video, and do the assignment now from scratch without looking at it. Because if you can do it now from scratch without looking at it, then you are where you need to be, right? Okay, this has been lesson number 19. I think I'm going to have one more lesson, and that's a lesson on threading, because threading is something that we're going to be needing to know how to do when we start working with the Arduino, because we might have one thing going on over here and we can't have that lock up our processing. We might need something going on over here and something going on over here, so we're going to have multiple threads running in our program. And so that's what I'm going to teach you guys to do next week. And then what I think I'm going to do is the next lesson, the next Python lesson, will start a new playlist, which is going to be doing 3D graphics and visuals and simulations, where now you've just kind of gotten the foundation out of the way in this first playlist. In the next playlist, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do really, really slick 3D graphics and 3D animations in Python. And this would be the thing that you could use to like maybe start writing some games, or maybe you could use this to start doing some other really cool things. And so the next lesson is going to be another playlist, and it's going to be kind of like VPython, Visual Python, Python Animations and Graphics Lesson 1, but it really would be kind of like lesson 21 in this playlist, if that makes sense. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, guys, I hope you're having as much fun taking these lessons as I'm having making the lessons. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell when you subscribe so you'll get notifications of my next lessons coming out. And as always, I appreciate if you will share this video on social media with other people, because we need more people coding and fewer people watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. I'll talk to you guys later.